Pay attention to the man in the driver's seat. His name is Alex Chen. What you are looking at is a still frame, pulled from the body-worn camera of a police officer. It's grainy, washed out by the glare of a flashlight beam, but you can see the apprehension in his eyes. His hands are visible on the steering wheel, exactly where he was told to put them. The date is October 14th. The time is 11:52 p.m. On the side of a deserted stretch of highway, surrounded by the deep, silent darkness of the countryside, Alex Chen is following every instruction he is given. He is polite. He is compliant. He is trying to make the traffic stop go as smoothly as possible. He has less than 4 minutes to live. This is not just the story of a young man's life cut tragically short. It is the story of a lie, meticulously constructed by a man in a position of absolute power. And it is the story of how that lie was unraveled by a silent, impartial witness that the man never accounted for. A witness that was strapped to the victim's own wrist. It is the story of a call for help, made when the victim could no longer speak for himself. Alex Chen was 22 years old, and he was on the verge of everything. He had just finished his final exams for his computer science degree, acing a notoriously difficult data structures course that had been his personal Everest for months. He'd already accepted a junior developer position at a promising tech startup in the city, a job he was supposed to start in 2 weeks. To his friends, he was the reliable one, the designated driver, the guy who would show up with tools and a six-pack to help you assemble IKEA furniture without being asked. He had a quiet, self-deprecating sense of humor and an encyclopedic knowledge of old sci-fi movies. He loved hiking, not the intense peak bagging kind, but long, meandering walks through the woods, where he'd take artistic photos of moss and fungi with his phone. His mother, Eleanor, would describe him as an old soul. He called her every single day, without fail. Sometimes just for a minute to say hello on his way to class. Other times for an hour, listening patiently as she recounted neighborhood gossip or fretted about his father's cholesterol. He was saving up for a down payment on a small condo, not because he was in a rush to leave home, but because he wanted his parents to move into his larger room so his father could have a proper office space. That was Alex. Always thinking 2 steps ahead for someone else's benefit. He was not a saint. He was a normal young man. He sometimes left his laundry on the floor for a week. He could be stubborn during arguments about politics with his dad. He had a lead foot, a fact his car insurance company was well aware of. A couple of speeding tickets in his late teens had taught him to be more careful, but he still loved the feeling of an open road. And he had anxiety. It was something he managed, mostly. But traffic stops were a particular trigger. His father, an immigrant who had instilled in his son a deep, cautious respect for authority, had drilled him since he was 15. Hands on the wheel, yes sir. No sir. Do not move unless you are told. Do not make them nervous. Alex had taken the lesson to heart. He'd read stories, seen the videos. He knew that for some people, a routine stop could become a death sentence. His anxiety wasn't irrational. It was a survival mechanism. A few months before his death, for his 22nd birthday, his parents had given him a new smartwatch. He loved it. He was a tech guy after all. He tracked his sleep, his steps, his heart rate during workouts. He loved the convenience of seeing a text without pulling out his phone. He had even turned on the fall detection feature, joking with his mom that it would alert her if he tripped while hiking. It was a novelty, a gadget. No one could have imagined it would one day become his only voice. On the other side of the Bodycam, holding the flashlight, was Officer Michael Thorne. On paper, Michael Thorne was a model police officer. 38 years old, a 12-year veteran of the force. He had 2 commendations for bravery, one for pulling a family from a burning car, and another for de-escalating a tense standoff with an armed man. He was married to his high school sweetheart, had 2 young daughters, and coached a pee-wee soccer team on the weekends. In his town, he was known as Mike. He was seen as a friendly, reassuring presence, the kind of cop you'd be glad to see if you were in trouble. His superiors described him as decisive and proactive, a go-getter. He led his shift in arrests and citations. He was the first to volunteer for overtime, the first to respond to a backup call. He presented the perfect image of a dedicated public servant. But beneath that surface, a different portrait was hiding in plain sight, visible only to those who knew where to look, or to those who had the misfortune of seeing it firsthand. If you looked in the right places, you would find the cracks in the facade. You would find the 7 civilian complaints filed against him over 5 years for excessive force. 7 times, citizens had formally accused him of unnecessary violence during arrests, of verbal abuse, of escalating minor situations into physical confrontations. All 7 complaints were dismissed. The internal investigations found his use of force within department guidelines. The complainants were often portrayed as unreliable, as criminals or agitators who were simply trying to get out of a charge. Thorne's sterling record and his calm, articulate explanations during the reviews always won the day. The system, designed to police itself, had looked at Michael Thorne 7 times and declared him blameless. If you had access to his patrol car's computer, you might notice a pattern. He disproportionately pulled over vehicles in the early hours of the morning on deserted roads. He had a knack for turning minor traffic infractions, a license plate light out, rolling through a stop sign, into full-blown vehicle searches. He was looking for something more. He was hunting. And if you could have seen the private messages on a secure law enforcement forum he frequented, you would have felt a chill. Under a pseudonym, Thorne was not the friendly community cop. He was a bitter, angry man who ranted about the war on police. He referred to the public as sheep and predators. He shared bodycam videos from other officers, mocking civilians for their fear and what he called their insolence. One post from 3 months before he met Alex Chen was particularly telling. He wrote, "The moment they question your authority, the moment you see that flicker of defiance in their eyes, you have to put them down. Not with talk, with action. Remind them who is in charge. Remind them that your safety is the only safety that matters." This was the man Alex Chen was now trying to placate on the side of Highway 88. The man who held the power of life and death, and who believed his safety was the only safety that mattered. The day had been perfectly ordinary for both of them. Alex spent the afternoon packing up his college apartment, sorting books into boxes, and wrapping the framed movie posters he'd collected. He called his mum around 6 p.m., telling her he was leaving later than planned, but should be home before midnight. He wanted to get one last pizza from his favorite campus spot. His last words to her were, "Love you. See you soon." Officer Thorne's shift started at 8 p.m. There was a briefing, a rundown of recent burglaries, a bolo for a stolen vehicle. He checked his equipment, loaded his gear into his patrol car, and hit the streets. For the first few hours, it was routine. A noise complaint, a fender bender. Then, just after 11:45 p.m., he saw it. A dark sedan traveling at the speed limit. But as it passed under a streetlight, he noticed the temporary registration tag in the rear window was curled and hard to read. It was a minor, almost non-existent infraction. It was probable cause. It was enough. He pulled out and flipped on his lights. The bodycam footage begins here. It shows Alex's car pulling over promptly and correctly onto the wide shoulder. Thorne approaches the passenger side, a standard safety tactic. His flashlight beam cuts through the darkness, illuminating a nervous but composed young man. "Good evening, sir. Officer Thorne, County Sheriff's Department. Reason I'm stopping you is your temporary tag is obscured. Do you have your license, registration, and proof of insurance?" Alex's voice is steady. Yes, sir. Of course. He leans over to the glove compartment, moving slowly and deliberately. The registration is in here. My license is in my wallet. Is it okay if I get it? Just get the registration first, Thorne commands. Alex complies. He hands over the paperwork. Thorne examines it with his flashlight. This expired last week, son. You can hear the sigh in Alex's voice. A quiet sound of frustration. Oh man, I'm so sorry, officer. I just finished my finals. I've been moving. It completely slipped my mind. I can get it renewed first thing tomorrow. Thorne is silent for a moment. The camera is still pointed at Alex. I need you to step out of the vehicle. This is the moment the tone shifts. It is no longer a simple traffic stop for an expired tag. A request to exit the vehicle is a significant escalation. Alex's voice tightens. Step out? Sir, is there a problem? I just gave you an order. Step out of the vehicle, Thorne says, his voice losing its initial flat professionalism. Okay, sir. I'm stepping out. Alex opens the door, his hands still visible. He gets out of the car, and Thorne directs him to the rear, between the trunk and the patrol car's front bumper. The area is flooded with the patrol car's headlights. Turn around. Place your hands on the trunk. Alex does as he's told. He's facing away from the officer now. Sir, I don't understand what's happening. I'm not armed. I'm just trying to get home. Thorne begins to pat him down. It's rougher than necessary. You have an expired registration. Your story about being a student, we get that all the time. I'm going to search your vehicle. You're going to search my car. For an expired tag? Do you have a warrant for that? Alex's voice is shaking now, but he isn't yelling. He's questioning. It's that flicker of defiance Thorne had written about. And this is where everything accelerates. You don't get to ask me questions, Thorne snarls. The bodycam shakes as he shoves Alex against the trunk. You get to do what you're told. I know my rights, Alex says, his voice cracking with fear and indignation. Wrong. In that moment, for Officer Michael Thorne, Alex Chen had no rights. Thorne spins him around. Your rights? He says, his face now inches from Alex's. The bodycam captures Alex's wide, terrified eyes. Thorne grabs Alex's left arm and twists it behind his back in a painful-looking hold. Alex cries out, Ow! You're hurting me! It is this sudden, violent motion, the twisting, the force of his body being thrown off balance, that triggers the device on his wrist. The smartwatch's accelerometer and gyroscope detect a hard fall or impact. A notification silently appears on its screen. It looks like you've taken a hard fall. A 60-second countdown begins. If the user doesn't dismiss it, the watch will automatically call emergency services and send a message with the user's location to their emergency contacts. Alex doesn't see the notification. He can't. His arm is being wrenched behind his back. He's trying to stay upright. He's trying to reason with the man who is hurting him. Please, stop. I'm not resisting. The countdown on the watch continues. 45 seconds. 30 seconds. On the bodycam, you can see Thorne wrestling with Alex, forcing him to the ground. Alex is not fighting back. He is flailing, trying to protect himself. The camera jiggles wildly, pointing at the pavement, then the sky, then Alex's face, contorted in pain. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. At 11:55 p.m. and 12 seconds, Alex Chen's smartwatch dials 911. A dispatcher in the county communications center answers. 911. What is your emergency? There is no response. Only the sound of a struggle. A man grunting with effort. Another man pleading, Please, I can't breathe. Then the voice of Officer Thorne, sharp and clear, cuts through the noise. Stop resisting. Stop reaching for my weapon. It was a lie. A self-serving, preemptive lie shouted for the benefit of his own recording device. The Bodycam footage, when later analysed, would show Alex's hands were pinned beneath his own body. He wasn't reaching for anything. The dispatcher is confused. The call is coming from a cell phone number, but the location ping is on a highway, and the voice she hears is one of her own officers. She can hear him, but he's not talking to her. He's in the middle of a confrontation. She tries to speak. "Sir, this is 911. Is everything okay?" There is no answer. Only the chilling sound of a sharp, sickening impact, followed by a sudden, final exhalation of breath. Then, silence. The dispatcher listens. The line is still open. She can hear the wind. She can hear the distant hum of the patrol car's engine. But the pleading has stopped. The struggle has stopped. A few seconds later, Thorne's voice comes over the police radio, a different channel entirely. His breathing is heavy. "Dispatch, 7. Adam 12. Shots fired. Suspect down. I'm okay. Send backup and an ambulance." But the 911 call from Alex's watch was still connected. The dispatcher was now listening to the beginning of the cover-up. She heard the click of handcuffs. She heard Thorne muttering to himself, catching his breath. She heard the sound of him dragging something heavy. Then Thorne must have realized the sounds he was making were being recorded by his own body cam. There is a distinct click. The video feed cuts out. According to the device log, the camera was manually turned off. For the next 8 minutes, until the first backup car arrived, there is only the audio from the open 911 call. It captured the sounds Thorne never wanted anyone to hear. The sound of him opening and closing his trunk. The sound of him panting as he moved Alex's lifeless body. The sound of him meticulously staging the scene, placing Alex's hand near his own holstered sidearm to support the lie he had already told. He was creating a fiction, but the impartial witness on Alex's wrist was recording the truth. When backup arrived, they found a scene that looked exactly like a textbook case of a justified shooting. A lone officer, a suspect who had allegedly resisted and reached for his weapon. Officer Thorne gave his statement, his voice calm and professional once more. He claimed Alex had attacked him after being told the car would be searched. He said he feared for his life. It was a clean story. And in the beginning, the system believed him. The first alarm for Alex's family was a text message. At 11:55 p.m., Elena Chen's phone buzzed. It was the automated alert from Alex's watch. Alex Chen has taken a hard fall. It included a map pinging his location on Highway 88. She tried to call him. It went straight to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail. Panic began to set in. She woke her husband. They looked at the location on the map. It was a desolate spot. They thought maybe he'd been in an accident. They decided to drive there themselves. By the time they arrived, the road was blocked by a wall of police cars and flashing lights. An officer stopped them, telling them there had been an incident, and the road was closed. When Eleanor explained her son's phone was located at that very spot, the officer's face changed. He told them to wait. The initial police response was to protect their own. The department issued a preliminary statement about an officer-involved shooting following a violent confrontation. Thorne was placed on administrative leave, as was standard procedure. The investigation was handed over to the state police, but the narrative was already set. Thorne was the victim, Alex Chen, the aggressor. But there were problems with that narrative from the very beginning. The first problem was the 911 call. The county dispatch supervisor flagged it as bizarre. A 911 call where one of their own officers could be heard, but wasn't the one who called. A call that recorded the sounds of a struggle. And then silence? It didn't add up. They cross-referenced the number. It was registered to Alex Chen. The breakthrough came when a tech-savvy detective in the state police, tasked with collecting evidence, realized the significance of the smartwatch. He requested the full data log from the manufacturer. It was more than just a 911 call. It was a complete second-by-second chronicle of Alex's final minutes. It contained the GPS data, confirming his location. It contained the accelerometer data, showing the exact moment of the violent, twisting motion as Thorne grabbed Alex's arm and the subsequent impact as he was forced to the ground. And most damningly, it contained his heart rate data. At the start of the traffic stop, Alex's heart rate was elevated, around 110 beats per minute, consistent with anxiety. As Thorne ordered him out of the car, it climbed to 140. During the physical struggle, it spiked to over 180 beats per minute, the frantic rhythm of a body in pure terror and desperation. And then, at 11:55 p.m. and 21 seconds, the exact moment the dispatcher heard the sickening impact on the open 911 line, Alex Chen's heart rate flatlined. It dropped from 182 to 0 in a single second. That was not the heart rate of a man who was shot during a struggle. It was the heart rate of a man whose life was extinguished instantly. Now, investigators turned their full attention to the other silent witness, Thorne's own body cam. Thorne had submitted it as evidence, confident it would back up his story. He believed the crucial moments were obscured by the chaotic movement. He was wrong. Forensic analysts slowed the footage down, frame by single frame. They stabilized the image. And, in the split seconds where the camera was pointed at Alex, they found the truth. They could see that Alex's hands were empty. They could see he was trying to shield his face, not attack. They isolated the audio. Thorne's shout of, "Stop reaching for my weapon," was clear. But so was the fact that it was followed almost immediately by the sound of the fatal blow, with no time for Alex to have possibly complied, let alone perform the action he was accused of. And then there was the matter of the camera being turned off. Thorne claimed it must have been damaged in the struggle, but the device's internal log was clear. The button was pressed. It was a manual, deliberate act. The interrogation of Michael Thorne took place 3 days later. He walked in with his union representative, still projecting an air of calm confidence. He was the hero cop who had survived a deadly encounter. The investigators let him tell his story again. He recounted the expired tag, Alex's argumentative tone, the sudden, unprovoked attack. He was surprisingly strong, Thorne said, his voice laced with feigned gravitas. He spun on me, tried to get my gun. We struggled. I had no choice. I had to end the threat. Then the investigator slid a file across the table. It was a printout of Alex Chen's heart rate data. "Can you explain this, Officer Thorne?" Thorne looked at the graph. The steady climb, the frantic peak, the instantaneous drop to 0. He didn't understand what he was looking at. "It's his heart rate," the investigator said. "From his watch. The same watch that called 911 and recorded you. The same watch that recorded the moment his heart stopped beating." Thorne's composure finally cracked. He stared at the paper, his face paling. "Now," the investigator continued, his voice cold, "let's talk about your body camera. You said it was damaged. Our forensics team says it was turned off. And the audio from the 911 call continues for 8 minutes after your camera goes dark. It records you moving the body. It records you tampering with the scene." Thorne said nothing. The walls were closing in. The technology he had failed to consider was now testifying against him. The final piece was the autopsy. The medical examiner's report was unequivocal. Alex Chen had not been shot. The cause of death was a massive skull fracture resulting from a single powerful blow with a heavy blunt object. The pathologist identified the object as being consistent with the butt of Thorne's department-issued heavy-duty flashlight. the one he was holding when he first approached the car. The flashlight beam that washed out Alex's face in the first frame of the video was also the murder weapon. The autopsy also revealed defensive wounds on Alex's forearms, but no injuries on Thorn, aside from a small scrape on his knuckles. It was the physical proof that corroborated the digital evidence. Alex was defending himself, not attacking. Michael Thorn was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and tampering with evidence. The hero cop was now a killer in a cage. The trial was a landmark case, pitting the sworn testimony of a police officer against the cold, hard data of a consumer gadget. The prosecution's case was a methodical presentation of the digital timeline. They synced the Bodycam video, the 911 audio, and the Smartwatch data into a single, horrifying multimedia presentation. The jury saw Alex's fear in the video, heard it in his voice on the 911 call, and saw it quantified in the frantic beats of his heart. The prosecutor's closing argument was devastating. Michael Thorn believed he was the only witness to what happened on that dark highway. He believed his badge gave him the authority to be judge, jury, and executioner, and his word would be the only word that mattered. He forgot about the second camera. He forgot about the open 911 line. And he forgot about the silent witness on Alex Chen's wrist, a witness that kept ticking, kept tracking, and kept telling the truth even after Alex's heart was stopped. The defense was left with little to argue. They tried to discredit the smartwatch, calling its data unreliable. They tried to portray Thorn as a panicked officer making a split-second decision. But they could not explain away the 8 minutes of audio from the cover-up. They could not explain why he lied about being shot at. They could not explain the deliberate deactivation of his body camera. Alex's mother, Eleanor, took the stand to give a victim impact statement. She did not cry. Her voice was filled with a cold, hard grief that was more powerful than any tears. She spoke of her son's dreams, of the job he would never start, of the grandchildren she would never hold. She held up his watch, which had been returned to her by the police. "This cheap little gadget," she said to the court, her voice trembling with contained rage. "This thing you buy at the mall did more to protect my son than the man who was paid to protect him. It couldn't save his life, but it has saved his truth. It has saved his honor." The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. The verdict was guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced Michael Thorn to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In the courtroom, a quiet sob broke the silence. It was Elena Chen, finally allowing herself to weep. It was not a sound of joy, but of profound, heartbreaking relief. Justice had been done, but it would not bring her son back. In the aftermath, the case of Alex Chen sent shockwaves through law enforcement. Thorn's department was forced to overhaul its policies. Bodycams were now set, so they could not be manually deactivated during an encounter. Every use of force complaint was now reviewed by a civilian oversight board. The private forum where Thorn had vented his rage was shut down after being exposed by journalists. But the true legacy of the case is not in policy changes. It is in the human cost and in the questions it leaves us with. Alex Chen's room is still as he left it, with boxes half-packed for a life he never got to live. His father sits in there sometimes, holding his son's favorite sci-fi novel, unable to read the words. His mother no longer finds joy in her garden. It only reminds her of the long, meandering walks her son used to love. His friends have a memorial for him every year at their favorite pizza place, leaving an empty seat at the table. This case serves as a chilling cautionary tale. It shows how a public facade of heroism can conceal a private reality of rage and entitlement. It demonstrates how a system designed to hold power accountable can fail, again and again, choosing to believe the comfortable lie over the inconvenient truth. 7 times Michael Thorne was flagged, and 7 times the system gave him a pass, loading the weapon that would eventually kill Alex Chen. And what you must understand is that technology was not the hero of this story. It was merely the narrator. It was an impartial observer in a world of flawed human beings. It gave a voice to a victim who had been silenced, and it exposed a monster who was hiding behind a badge. Pay attention to the world around you. The people who hold power over your life, whether it's a police officer, a boss, or a politician, are not infallible. Their authority does not make them righteous. Their uniform does not make them heroes. Trust your instincts. But more importantly, demand accountability. Demand transparency, because without it, the only thing that stands between a routine interaction and a tragedy might be the random chance of an impartial electronic witness. Alex Chen's story ended on the side of a dark road, but the echo of his smartwatch's 911 call remains. It is a permanent digital scream, a reminder that even when a human voice is silenced, the truth can find a way to speak.